All right, we need to talk about Douglas Luiz because there's a lot of interesting information about him that I've been able to find. And will Forest keep him or will we be getting rid? Welcome to your Forest News. Hi guys, hope you're doing well and welcome to your latest Forest News where we're going to be talking about Douglas Luiz. Coming up, I'm going to break down to you his contract details. When or will not that permanent deal be triggered? Will Forest try and trigger it? And how is Sean Dyche feeling about it? Also, if you're enjoying the content, please don't forget to hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed as well if you are new. And don't forget, as I said yesterday, this isn't sponsored, but loads of you are signing up to it. So if you're looking to change your energy supplier over to Octopus, who I've been with for like 4 or 5 years, if you use my link there, I get 50 quid credit, you get 50 quid credit. And you know what? Right now, I'm not paying for electricity because it's one of these power plunge things. So go check them out. It's in the description as well. Okay, let's talk about Douglas Luiz. So there's been rumours circulating currently that Sean Dyche doesn't see Douglas Luiz as part of his long-term plan for Forest. Now, that is twofold, I would say. One is we know he's got this chronic hamstring injury that keeps him coming in and out the side that Forest need to manage with and everything else. And we thought for a long time, well, that's probably why we've been seeing him play for 45 minutes, then subbed off, then he gets injured again, and what have you. But that is probably more to do with his contract, which I'll come on to in a second. Now, in terms of what Forest paid for Douglas Luiz, we paid 3 million euros up front, and then there's a 25 million euro obligation clause if certain thresholds or obligations, probably the right word, are met. So one of the big ones for this one, and this is what I want to talk to you guys about, is the game time that he plays. And there's a 15-game trigger on this contract, if you believe what these reports are and what I've heard is true. Now, does that mean that any time he takes to the pitch at Forest, 1 game ticked off? No, it's not that case. Does it mean it's for certain competitions? Yes, it does. So let me break it down, right? So the 15-game rule is for Premier League games. Within those Premier League games, if Douglas Luiz plays more than 45 minutes, it counts as one towards that 15-game clause. So at the moment, if you were to break it down, Douglas Luiz has played in the Premier League, in the League Cup, and in Europa. So any games in the Europa and that game against Swansea in the League Cup doesn't actually count towards this 15-game trigger. The ones that do count are the ones where he has played. So I've got a list of him here. He played 76 minutes against Burnley, 53 minutes against Chelsea, 45 against Bournemouth, so 1/2, 14 minutes against Man United, and 5 minutes against Spurs. So out of those games, the Burnley, Chelsea, and Bournemouth ones do count. The Man United and the Spurs one don't count because they didn't reach that 45-minute threshold. And this is interesting because it's kind of hampering us, but in a way, Forest could utilize Douglas Luiz for a whole season without needing to buy. Again, I'll come on to that in just a second. But let me tell you what apparently Sean Dyche has been saying. Sean Dyche was asked about this with Douglas Luiz at a recent presser. And he said, is any of these clauses holding you back from whether or not you're playing Douglas Luiz? And he basically said, as you'd expect from a manager, basically, I don't give a damn about them. I'm picking the best team that I think is going to win the match. And whether or not there's a clause or not is not really my concern, which is what you would expect a manager to say, right? So that's what he said on it. However, when you look through the games he has played, and this is just not Sean Dyche, this is under Ange, and I'd say under Nuno, but Nuno didn't even touch him. There's been definitely this halftime substitution of Douglas Luiz, which I think is quite interesting in itself, because I'm not sure if 45 minutes is 45 minutes. This is the bit I'm not clear on. Is like, okay, let's say Douglas Luiz starts the game and we get to half time, but there's been 2 minutes injury time and he's been on the pitch 47 minutes. Does this now count as one that qualifies, or is it 45 plus? That bit I'm not sure on. So that's still the unclear bit for me. But what is going to happen under Douglas Luiz, I think, over the next month is we will see more of him because he is now fit. Sean Dyche said in his presser the other day in the build-up to Fulham that he's been doing more training, more heavy load training, etc., basically hinting that he is fit. So I think while Sangare is away, Douglas Luiz will become that 8 that we saw Sangare play in our recent win against Spurs. And then Anderson will be a bit of a holder with Yates injured and Dominguez not quite sure where he was last game. I think that's where we'll see him. And in this Christmas period coming up, if I just bring up the fixtures quickly for us, this would show, and bear in mind, how many did I say? There's 3 games out of the 9 that we fully used him on, or where he's qualified for the clause within his contract. If you look at our current fixtures coming up, while Sangare is away, we got Fulham, we got Man City, we got Everton, we got Villa and West Ham. Now Sangare should be back in and around the time of the Arsenal game. If you want to include the Arsenal game, depending on how far Ivory Coast go, that's the 17th of January. So that would be a further 6. So 6 full games under the 15 clause, plus the 3 there would bring us to 9 anyway. So Forest would still have leeway of another 5 to 6 games with Douglas Luiz where they can utilise him before they make the decision on whether or not they want to sign him. I hope this is all kind of making sense. So what I expect to see is Douglas Luiz probably starting in these games. Maybe if Dominguez is back in, they'll switch roles between him, like sub him in and out. But as things stand, Forest are very comfortable and don't need to decide what they want to do on Douglas Luiz. Now, the other thing to add on it, there are reports as well to say that Sean Dyche doesn't want to permanently sign Douglas Luiz. He doesn't fit into his plans, I think the quote was. Whether or not they got it directly from Sean Dyche or journalists are chatting, journalist crap as always, who knows, right? But there is an expectation that Forest will look in this January transfer market for another CM. Now, that in itself is going to cause a lot of rumours, because if Forest start looking in the January market for a CM, what's that going to link into? Elliot Anderson. And people are going to be like, oh, look, Forest is signing, I don't know, let's just say Conor Gallagher, for example. First name that springs to mind. Oh, that's the replacement for Elliot Anderson. Where in reality, Forest are looking for a potential replacement on Douglas Luiz. Now, let's just say we do sign Conor Gallagher. By the way, we're not linked to Conor Gallagher, right? Before people start spreading weird stuff on socials. I'm just using that as an example. Conor Gallagher would be the replacement for Douglas Luiz. Okay, it wouldn't be directly for Anderson. The expectation is, as I said to you in yesterday's video, is that Elliot Anderson is probably going to stay to Forest until, ideally for Forest, from Forest's perspective, after the World Cup. From the suitors, they want him before the World Cup, okay? So don't get too worried if you see Forest starting to get linked in the January window to CMs. It's more likely to be for Douglas Luiz. And that brings me on to the question that I want to ask you guys. Would you sign Douglas Luiz or not? He's 28 years old now, coming up to 28 years old. He's clearly got this hamstring chronic issue of his. So there are plenty of cons to signing him. But I just look when we play with him on the pitch and I just feel we're a more controlled team. I really do. I still like the idea. I go back to the Real Betis game where we played him, Anderson and Sangare, and that was just a beautiful midfield 3. I'd kind of like to see more of that. I think at 25 mil, Forest have wasted more money on more crap than that over the last 4 years in the Premier League. I just think if they can confirm or get a good read that this hamstring injury, they can control it, I think he's well worth it. Because we're seeing players coming in from abroad who aren't settling in quick, who can't get up to speed with the Premier League and everything else. Whereas we know Douglas Luiz was brilliant at Villa. And from the samples we've seen of him at Forest, he's been fantastic. I think 25 mil is definitely worth the punt. But I want to know what you guys think. So hopefully this video has been informative to you. There is an update on Elliot Anderson on yesterday's video. If you haven't caught it, I'll leave it on the end screen as well. But get your thoughts in on all of that. Please make sure you've hit the like, make sure you're subscribed. And I look forward to reading your comments. Come on, you Reds.